Okay. When you're cutting brush, I'm just going to lay this over here for now. When you're cutting brush, that's the quickest way to throw the chain that I can possibly think of. And to me, that's the most difficult cutting that there is. And it's hard on the body. So when you're cutting, I like to see, if you're just cutting brush, I'd like to see a brush saw. It actually designed and made for that job. You know what they're like? It's like, you know what brush saws are like. Clearing saws, they're like a weed whacker with a buzz saw. But if you're going to get one, don't buy a cheap one. See? Buy good quality. But if you're using chainsaw, chain has to definitely be tight. And when you're cutting brush, cut it like so. Flip the saw around in your hand and cut back and forth like this. See? So your arm is resting on your leg and you're not creating spears. If you go to cut brush like so, you tend to chop, you hit the ground more often. When you hit it, it tends to whip back and forth and like that. So just as you hit it, you want to be wide open, cut it off. Every time you cut a tree, that requires a plan. So I got to do a little more brushing. Everybody starts to saw like this?
No.
Put it on the ground?
Okay.
Do you? Put it on the ground?
Which you put in there?
Yeah? You start to saw like so?
That's probably the way you're supposed to do it.
What's that?
With your foot?
That's hard to do. In the old days, the saw handles were big enough you could actually put a toe in there and hold it down. You can't put a toe in there anymore because then when you pull it, it'll slip out on you, see? So I don't like to put it on the ground. If you do put it on the ground, OSHA says put it on the ground or other suitable anchoring method. A young lady at Aldo Leopold Foundation out of Baraboo has taught her people to do a heel and a toe. And it actually works quite good. At first it seemed quite uncomfortable for me. But if you've got snow on the ground or so on, I like to just do a leg lock. All it is you rest the saw, always chain brake on, rest it gently against your leg. Once the saw is properly warmed up,
You're that strong?
I got the power. Go. See? But once the saw is warmed up, there isn't any reason why it shouldn't start the first or second pull, and there isn't any reason you have to use the choke. See? Shouldn't be any reason you put on the high idle if the saw is properly tuned up. See? There's nothing worse than a piece of equipment that doesn't work right. Don't care what the brand is. See? So I like a leg lock and just give it a little quick pull. Rather than pulling this way, where you have a shorter stroke, like just set it here, give a cross pull. See? The idea of safety is never make a mistake, but when you do, how do you cover your butt? See? And if I forget to put the chain brake on the saw locks, I set it. So almost everything you do tends to lend yourself to options, and what's important is to have options. So how you start the saw is just get in the habit. I learned to start the saw like this because I was wearing out ropes. You could actually wear out a case if you pull like this enough. Throwing the saw against OSHA regs. I can tell you about two. If the saw don't start after about third or fourth pull this way, what's your next move? Well, if you hold the throttle, it'll start better, right? See? As soon as you start getting the saw away from you, you don't have so much power or control as what you think. I'm told, and I don't know any particulars other than the story, I'm told the guy did throw the saw, hit the rubber tire, saw came all the way around, and got his neck. See? And he cut the muscle. It takes two muscles to hold your head up. He didn't hit the spine awfully close, head fall off to the left. Held it up, managed to get his partner's attention, his highway department, hit a payloader tire, and he life-flighted about, he lived. I like stories when people live, particularly good. Had another one, and I actually went and tracked the fellow down. He was a logger out of Three Lakes, Wisconsin, cutting the woods for 23 years, never had any major accidents. He started the saw like so, and when on high idle, when the saw starts, the chain is spinning without the chain brake on. Hit a small sapling, and when you get it out here like that, you don't have as much control as you think. The saw came back and got both cheeks, like he sat on a running saw. as injuries go, it wasn't all that serious. For him, it was the worst day of his life. He drove himself into emergency. He said he was in there in the hospital, in emergency room, bare bottom aimed at the ceiling, face down. He said, and the two nurses cleaning him up for the stitching just couldn't stop giggling. They just thought it was funny. See? And he said, even if they had pretended it was serious, he'd have felt a little better. But what he did, he knew was stupid. It was a dumb mistake, and he got away with starting to saw like that for 20-some years. See? So